The found footage horror genre was made to break down the walls and barriers between reality and what is horror. Made famous from films like The Blair Witch Project and of course Paranormal Activity. But how has this genre evolved into one of the most intense and frightening forms that the horror genre can offer? A big issue I have with this genre is that it can be very difficult to adopt into the gaming industry because of the direct inclusion of the player's choices. But there are very different and exciting ways that the gaming industry can adopt this form of horror, and I'm excited to take a diving in how the found genre is being adopted in gaming as a whole.
Lynch! Stop fucking killing!
Many people would tell you that the Blair Witch Project invented and even crafted the foundation on which the found footage genre can be seen. But the first account of a film using this technique with horror and documentary being put together is of course The Cannibal Holocaust in 1980. A movie that showed the world the potential of a documentary and horror movie coming together as we see a crew investigate and overstep their boundaries in a tribe and culture that they don't understand. This movie was a pure breakdown of mediums and people didn't even know if what they were looking at was actually happening or not. It actually found itself getting banned in several countries and became a subject of several controversies due to the fact they had actually killed and harmed animals really on screen, and people believed that they generally had killed people and believed it was a snuff film this whole time. Inciting raw and genuine emotions, the found genre is an incredible art form that lingers in history for hundreds of years. The power of creating a sense of realism was of course made popular from distillery novels from the likes of Dracula, Frankenstein and of course Lovecraft's Call of Cthulhu, making the reader feel like they're actually looking through someone's diary or even looking at evidence and documents that may actually exist within the world. This is exactly the same as the found footage genre, but of course on the page. And in modern cinema, we're seeing it being used as a great marketing tool. The Blair Witch created a whole website and film lore that couldn't even be found on screen, and you had to do your own personal digging to unveil what could actually be behind the film and its story. The audience didn't know exactly what was happening, but if you're able to take this little dig and maybe do a little bit of investigating, you may have a little bit more information on the subject. There is no conclusion, no happy ending, just silence. The audience have to create their own outcomes and depict exactly what happened and depict exactly if it's real or not. Of course, with the popularity of the genre, it was only a matter of time that it would be created and replicated in the gaming industry. In 2004, we saw Michigan, The Report from Hell, a first-person found footage approach to the survival horror genre. This game was received and even remembered as a weird experimental title that just came and went. You play as a cameraman for a news team that is investigating a mysterious mist that seems to be turning people into bug-like creatures. I personally love its individuality for the gaming scene of 2004 anyway, but for many people they thought it was a weird idea and concept that just wouldn't work in the gaming industry. And of course in 2009 we got a first glimpse of the internet monster superstar who is the Slender Man, created and treated like an urban legend for a Photoshop competition, but very quickly gained popularity and very much like the Blair Witch Project became a presence and figure that a lot of people really couldn't tell was real or not. But when things really started to change is when YouTube channel Marble Hornets created a short film found footage horror series just known as Marble Hornets. Because of its short and raw feeling, these videos solidified the urban legend of the Slender Man, leaving the audiences with more lore and always wanting more explanation to go along with this faceless figure. Very quickly we saw artworks and most importantly games mimicking the found footage style of the Hornets series. Slender the 8 Pages created pure potential for the found genre in gaming, but in 2013 people would be introduced to Outlast and that would change things completely.
Little pig.
For this genre to truly work and feel real and capture the terror of what could be raw and real footage, it requires an indirect inclusion from the viewer. Unlike normal films where you may get an origin story and see little secrets about them behind closed doors, the found footage genre only lets you see what happens whenever the camera is recording, so you don't truly get to know these characters, you only get to understand them on basic levels. And of course that's a very difficult thing for gaming to adopt. So when gaming requires direct inclusion from players, you have to control what you see, where you take the character, and ultimately it takes away what makes found footage feel so raw and just feels like it has a little recording icon attached to your screen. This genre truly captures something unlike any other FPS horror could do. There's a real feeling of weakness and uneasiness as we must navigate our ways with cameras through dark woods, dark halls, and of course abandoned houses. But I strongly believe though these games are very successful and some of my favourites and are mostly scary at times, they take away what makes the found genre so effective. When you watch the Blair Witch, Creep or even Paranormal Activity, we're only observers to these people's lives and even their deaths. We are a third party with no control or context outside of this lens, and because of that we're also a part of the story. We are the ones who found this footage, we are the ones who chose to observe this cruel world and reality that has been crafted for us, and you're the ones being told that this is the true story. Ultimately, you are still a part of this world and universe. So when you sit down and play a game like Outlast, you're playing as Miles, that reporter. The camera is an extension of the player's abilities to survive the dark and of course log events that occur throughout Mount Massive Asylum. If Outlast was a true found footage experience, it would be cut in vivid and extreme ways that would have no sense or meaning behind it. Feeling like an outsider in a found footage game is a really big challenge and it can't be mimicked correctly. Kane and Lynch 2 actually tried to do this approach that I respect. They tried to do something different, but because of the camera's low quality and the inability of the cameraman to actually keep his hands straight, it made it a headache-endorsing and infuriating visual experience that just didn't work in the first person shooter. But it still was a great experiment and it showed exactly the potential of what could be of this genre. Do I believe that you can actually create what it feels like to watch a found footage inside gaming? I definitely do. The Blair Witch game in 2019 had a fantastic segment that captures that true energy of the genre. In the final hours of the game, it feels just like the film. You're blindly navigating your way through a house in the pitch black. There's no way to do this without the cameras. Therefore, we are not truly in control of the movement of the characters. We are forced to focus and feel uncomfortable in a situation where we have to squint our eyes and even bring a small screen closer to us to be able to see exactly where we're going. This small screen is in control of the situation and it could reveal anything to the audience. You no longer feel in control because of your environment and you're now just a victim to whatever could appear in any corner of the screen. Of course there is true argument to what makes the found genre, or at least what makes a found footage game a found footage game. If Outlast or even Slender the Arrival is a found footage game, then why is not Five Nights at Freddy's? You must use a camera as an extension to survive, use it to locate and make sure the animatronics are where they belong, and if anything, the camera is way more intuitive than Slender the Arrival's ever was. That game actually doesn't even have a camera system that even matters. If you really want to, you can turn it off and it just proves it's nothing more than a HUD overlay, therefore mimicking the feeling of a found footage game, but failing to really go for its essence and energy of what it wants to be. To make the audience feel connected and out of control of the world and lore that they've seemed to come by, there has to be a new take and a new look on this type of genre, and there has been a rise of it recently in the cursed game genre. September 1999 sees the player only watching the screen, with only controls of where to face the camera and of course how to navigate this small house, with the inclusions of uncanny sound effects and of course hyper-realistic aesthetics. This game constantly makes the audience fear what could come next. You have no context or control of the horrors that could appear, and ultimately you're just left with an experience that leaves you with a static camera and very little answers to what really just happened. Her story directly asks the player to investigate and work out a murder mystery. There is no well done, there's no introduction, it's just you, a screen, and of course the sounds of you typing away at your keyboard. You must rewind and pause and piece things together. It helps that it's acted by real people and it only makes you feel a little bit more connected to this world. There's never a moment where this feels like a video game, it just feels like you're the one investigating and you're the one going through this footage, uncovering what actually happened there. But there are two big examples that actually gave me this idea for the video. The haunted PS1 demo disc. It's a take on the found genre that I think that we will see more. The aesthetics of PlayStation 1 creates and takes you back to a moment of simpler times and even more experimental times. So when you're playing this demo disc and you don't get explanations, you just get a demo disc like you did back in the day with a bunch of games that you have no idea what they are. It could mean anything and it could even release anything. Every game is more chaotic than the last, and every game could be creepier than the last. You never know what you're getting into, and because of that, it gives you that fear factor. It makes you wonder exactly what is happening here. It makes you wonder what you're playing, and it makes you wonder if you've just become something a little bit bigger than yourself. And of course, I can't not talk about no players online. As you play this game, it feels and captures that atmosphere of waiting in a solo map for other players to join your game. I spoke about this feeling a while back in my Scopeophobia video, and I mentioned that this feeling of being alone in a map designed for friends and players to have fun, but instead have no one around, silence and lack anything, it makes you feel like you're being watched. But that's ridiculous, right? As you keep playing and you're getting on with the objectives as you wait for other players to join online, you see someone else join the game and talk to you directly as the player. You have a choice not to finish the game. He tells you just to press the escape key and shut it down and leave whatever this weird paranormal entity is that wanders this map alone. But if you choose to deliver the final flag, the game just shuts down on its own and deletes all servers. The game tells you directly that this would happen, and I don't want to say anything else, but from this point it requires you as the player outside of the game to continue playing. It's up to you to work out the mystery, and it's entirely up to you to work out the code to crack to understand what exactly is happening here. It's a perfect way to make you feel connected, and it creates that perfect feeling of the found genre. You feel like you are now connected to this universe, and even when it's over, said and done, you're not really sure exactly what's happened, and you're not really sure if you're in the clear. This is genius. You're being treated directly and both indirectly to this world. It's your choice to continue watching and playing, but you have no control of the context or even the victory at the end. As I mentioned, the found footage genre creates its horror by giving the audience a world that they can't separate from fact or fiction. These styles of games allow this to happen. If you was told to play a game and 7 days later you will die, that fear comes from the aftermath and the possibilities that this game is actually based in reality, and therefore you've just been thrust into something you really don't want to be a part of. Throughout this, you may have noticed I even called it the found genre. I use that because found footage implies that it's only film, but we have learned that it expands beyond that. Books, films, gaming, and why not even you?